tonight we've got Behan and Jamie Gifford, very well-known cruisers and cruising tutors on sailing vessel Totem. You guys circumnavigated over what period of time? Because you're on your second lap at the moment, or you
Second lap currently.
Yeah, 2008 to 2018
10
was
years
our first.
circumnavigation, 10 years
Yeah,
circumnavigation.
that's right.
Yeah.
Why rush?
And these guys are currently cruising in Japan. And I contacted them a while ago and asked them, for purely selfish reasons, if they would be interested in doing a talk about cruising up through the Western Pacific up towards Japan and what they found when they got there. And thankfully, they agreed. It's the second or third webinar they've done for the OCC, I think. So they're old hands at this, and of course, they run their really successful coaching program, and they live on Zoom. So they are the pros. So Jamie Bien, please go ahead.
All right. Well, I'm going to share my screen here, and and then we'll jump right in. Thank you so much, Simon. We're just really happy to be here. I really appreciate that you reached out. And you might say selfish, but I don't believe that. I know that a lot of people have this dream to go to Japan because we did too. And we did because our mentors, well, the initial seed planted was from our mentors back in the 1990s, who they were on their boat in Japan. They'd finished a circumnavigation. They were doing a lap of the Pacific, and they were telling us about how much fun they were having in Japan, and we had to go.
But
We were
what
supposed to go actually, and then I got pregnant and sick, and yeah, we were going to join them in Japan for a little while.
and that was a long time ago. But
Yeah.
what we didn't dream about going to Japan is we'd be up at 5 in the morning giving a seminar. But here we are.
Yes, very happy to be here. To be clear,
Underway.
perhaps slightly rough.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's the track of our track around the world with the kids, giving them childhood at sea, childhood in 48 different countries. And I still can't believe we did that, but I think it is also um, it's remarkable, but also we only saw a little bit. There's just that one line. So anyway, far from the end of cruising for us, and we took off after a hiatus. Pandemic extended in Japan. I'm sorry, in Mexico. We took off in 2024, and the last couple of years have looked kind of like this, working across the North Pacific on a wholly different route with all of the kids on the land migrated to university and life beyond. And as you mentioned, yes, we live in Zoom. We're sitting in basically this same exact position right now. There's the chronometer behind Jamie. And we do our coaching service. We mentor people who want to go cruising and are feel so fortunate, frankly, to be able to be here and do that. So today, what we thought we would cover is try and pick up on a detail where Annette and Anders in their OCC talk last week had touched on Japan and the important role it plays when you're obviously headed to the Aleutians, the essential role, and Alaska and beyond. But and dig in deeper and talk about, not just why, but a bit of the how and the things that have made it so special for us and what it's been like along the way. It is an incredibly unique cruising destination in all of the places that we have been. This is now country territory number 54 for us. We have a bit of a basis for comparison. Nothing's like Japan remotely, and it's been really exciting to cruise here.
Yeah.
Ernest, our mentors are Jim and Diana Jesse of Nalu 4. So let's chat a little on why. Um, Japan has this just like rich tapestry of history, right? The culture, the history here. Again, of course, every country is going to be unique, but Japan's really pretty special. Um, we're just barely feeling like we're beginning to decode, and actually decode is completely the wrong word. Um, Beginning to put shape around the experience of that history through what we've been able to see in our travels around, from the boat to historic cities that appear cities, a couple of dozen homes that appear unchanged for however many hundreds plus years, the same small alleyways, the same clever drainage systems that have stood here since far before any modern conveniences that all of us take 100% for granted today. We also have loved coming to Japan to find that little alley that you can go down to a noodle shop and have the most phenomenal steaming bowl of ramen, and or whatever other surprise might be there. That there are these winding little streets to take you places and discover things, and we love that. We love Japan. Yeah, I couldn't resist putting this one in. Did I mention cultural depth? And I like don't even begin to understand this. We'd only been in Japan for a handful of weeks when we went to this particular festival. And if you can imagine hundreds of people dressed as like this to carry I think at least a half dozen of these very large floats through town with yelling and water being thrown and like people driving them on and um, there's so much to kind of experience and try to understand as we travel in Japan. This was actually just a few days ago, and in Japan, we are encountering a unique religion, Shinto, blended with Buddhism, blended with modern, and Shintoism. Uh, Part of the things I hope we get to do this year is understand it better. But there's a Shinto priest and there's Totem, and we now feel very blessed. This is a local equivalent of the blessing of the fleet. Um, Chants were chanted, rice was thrown, sake was drunk. We're not sure what happened, but we figured Totem's better set up for 2026 now. The food, can I talk about the food? We have loved being in Japan for the incredible food. This is one of the probably better lunches that we had, but it's Okinawan specifically, very Ryukyu style, unique style in southern Japan. But in terms of the dish selection, but what it is not unusual, which is the set lunch where you go in and you have um, at least a half dozen smaller plates of things to sample and enjoy. But it is exceptional, and it is an experience. And yes, I am eating all of the sushi as much as I can. That tower on the right, I think we were sold on the menu as it has 13 different kinds of sushi in it or something like that. Whatever. It's maybe that it's a bit of a gimmick, but it was fantastic. From that to on the left was from when our two of our kids were visiting. All three of our kids have been to visit in the last few months. But when two of them were visiting when we were up in Hokkaido this year and or last year, finding a little neighborhood restaurant with three tables and octogenarian woman who runs everything and cooking our slices of delicious beef over a charcoal fire in the middle of the table. Terrific food. And food has led to friends. If there is a reason to say why Japan, I think that the warmth and the friendliness of people is really, really up there. I only picked a few of my favorite photos of good times we've had sharing meals with Japanese to share here. There's a whole bunch more. We just didn't look as good.
The, the,
And
the,
there's a story behind each of them.
yeah, the top right photo was we're in a little fishing port, and there were three small sailboats there tied up to the wall next to us. And it turned out each one had a single-handing a Japanese sailor on it. And they invited us out to this izakaya. And one came over to get us to bring us to the
Izakaya is
izakaya.
a pub.
Yeah, it's pub food. And
It's your local.
and we arrived and they had the table completely set up and served and beer ready, and we had this amazing evening.
Unforgettable. And yeah, there's a story to go with each of these. But that we have had these incredible experiences over food, connecting with people in Japan. That frankly, it's just so beautiful that it is such a different landscape. Here we are motoring into a little town called Ine, and that the rows of mountains that unfold behind you, mountains behind mountains, and here in another fishing port, a very, for us, I think, typical scene. We'll share more in a bit. This is usually how we're tied up, and it is other fishing working boats around us. To the gorgeous little islands that may not have anyone living on them. This is an uninhabited island near the strait between the northern and southernmost islands, Honshu and Hokkaido. And it really exists in order to provide a safe haven for fishing boats. And it was a perfect safe haven for us so that we could pick our timing to cross the strait. As we learned from our agent Kirk, don't do it at night, and that seemed like very good advice given all the crazy traffic. But more of those incredible views of those places that say, come and understand me. And it wouldn't be a cruising presentation if we didn't have at least one sunset shot. So I pulled this one in. But to also just show like one small town after another has been very much our experience cruising in Japan. Plus the odd, very modern, wow, look at the size of that lift marina. This is where Totem is today, happily plugged into the dock because it's about, I don't know, 14C, and um, we're running the heater. That is also a new experience for us because this, also Japan, much more tropical kind of cruising is what we've overwhelmingly been used to in, the 18 years that we've been out. This has been more of our norm. So it's been a great new challenge and discovery for us. And if you say why Japan, I guess you could say, well, why cruise, right? And Japan just offers those things in spades, the opportunity to learn, to make human connections, and to help better understand our planet, right? And the people that are in it.
But it has been a very different experience than the other types of places,
Oh yeah.
cruising destinations that we've been in.
Yeah.
And so there's actually been quite a learning curve. And that's the stuff that we're going to go through now in a bit of
Yeah.
detail.
So let's start by talking a little bit about the prep side and what that looked like. So where do you go for information when you're trying to figure out how to go cruising in Japan and what's involved? Well, there's not a lot of information actually out there. And it's probably why a lot of people like us get inspired by a mentor. I imagine now that there has been some sort of celebrity YouTube presence here that's going to change things and make some and maybe drive more people to come. I haven't watched any of those videos, and I really should because then I'll know what they're telling you that we need to correct. um, but we'll give you our view. So, The Pacific Crossing Guide by Francis Hawkins, who is actively still cruising in the Western Pacific, is your guidebook. But you do need to know that, and the pages I have here on screen, sort of behind it, you have to understand it's very short amount of detail about individual countries, and it is great to whet your appetite, but it's not going to decode how to prepare for Japan for you. It's going to give you some direction, right? Um, as everyone here probably knows, WhatsApp has really taken over in the last couple of years as a communication norm for cruisers. There is a very useful Sailing in Japan WhatsApp group, and I grabbed a little screenshot from it there, which, if anyone is interested afterwards, hit us up. And if you've got plans to be in Japan, that's where we're talking a mix of folks inbound and folks already here. Um, those are kind of thin, though, aren't they? Noonsight does actually a pretty darn good job. And the other major resource I used in planning was the Conpira Yacht Services website, and tap Conpira Consulting into a Google, and you'll get there.
Part of what makes Japan so unique is it was closed. It was a locked country
That's
for
right.
centuries. And and for modern cruising, there's just very, very few people that have cruised in Japan.
It's true. And that is like part of the appeal, right? I mean, I think that we like going where there aren't a lot of people. At the moment, we're also looking forward to being around more people, and we've had a little cruiser community here in Okinawa, because for most of the last 2 years, we're sort of social folks, and we've had sundowners with other cruisers like a handful of times instead of at least once a week.
The North Pacific is a lonely place in
It's
a
not
way,
been a lot of
but
the cruiser
it's
community.
it's also been stunning.
And I'm hazarding really a guess here, but at the high end, maybe 50 private recreational boats, cruising boats that come through Japan on an annual basis. And I suspect it is substantially less than that.
And
We literally have never shared a space with another cruising boat other than three spots out of 50 plus that we have visited in Japan.
Yep.
Yep. So preparation. You're going to need some charts, and that felt like it was worth mentioning up front. We'll talk a little more later, but that's Navionics on the left. The charting software on the right is called New Smart, and it is Japanese only, and you need it. One of the really important features about cruising here is that there is aquaculture everywhere, and the only way that you can be certain you're getting kind of the latest information about where it might be located is New Smart. All of the purple hashes, all of the purple lined boxes in here represent aquaculture. You might not be able to see it from the boat. It might be actually underwater. And so while you do have to always have a good lookout, this is the way that you get a sense of where might be to even navigate and to know as well that you can't anchor in a large part of this area because there's that dotted line for the port. New PECSmart consistently shows us where the port lines are drawn because this is developed in conjunction with I'll get the name wrong, but it's like the Japanese Hydrographic Association, essentially. And they're the ones with the current information, not Navionics. Wouldn't it be nice? But no, we do need to get actually new software for cruising in Japan.
The software
Oh, and it's
was
all in Japanese.
yeah, unfortunately, but the software has been invaluable. We were a little wishy-washy on whether we really had need for it in the beginning, and then very quickly it was clear there's no doubt
Yeah.
that we've been to countries with lots of fishermen. Nothing anywhere is like Japan.
Yeah.
And the quantity of fishing gear, nets and kelp harvesting and seabed harvesting, oysters and things. It's like nowhere else in the world.
Yeah.
So you need this to be able to see where that stuff is.
Really, really important. So I grabbed a screen just from the App Store for New Smart just to sort of illustrate that another point of preparing for Japan, which is prepare for English not to be an option. And I think that we get a little comfortable with the fact that, lucky us, we speak the world's kind of international language. But here in Japan, you really can't assume that there's going to be a way that that works, that that's all that you need. And in this case, getting new PECSmart, it is possible to get it independently. We had help from Kirk at Conpira Yacht Services, and he has like a corporate account that made it a whole lot easier for us to get set up. There are a bunch of hurdles to jump through, and you have to make your device Japanese, which you can only do once a year. And that is not something everybody wants to do when they're installing some software.
And then the extra layer of looking at the device with the software on it and then holding a phone up with Google Translate, just translate the software to be able to understand what it's doing.
Yes, that is a pose you see on Totem, holding up the phone over the tablet to be able to interpret. Further on prep, of course, got to mention No Foreign Land because No Foreign Land, just like WhatsApp has really changed the way a lot of cruising communication happens in the last few years. And No Foreign Land does a pretty darn good job. The catch would be really that there just aren't that many cruisers here. And it's kind of funny if you compare the same, sort of, I don't know, 20-mile square area in Japan with one in, say, I don't know, the Caribbean or the Med. And there'll be like a handful of pins in No Foreign Land for Japan. And then like, scores of them in the Med. There's just not a lot of detail, and that's okay. I mean, I think a lot of cruisers who get out here are already used to maybe putting themselves out there in ways that are unscripted, but it is something to anticipate and prepare for. Plus, the information, again, is crowdsourced and may not be good. In fact, I can tell you firsthand that we have seen some pretty bad information, just unintended, but people who simply didn't know things that we were able to know largely because of working with Conpira. So the arrival process itself, it starts a long time before you actually arrive, literally for us months, because we also have a cat. And so we had to get our cat ready and her paperwork ready. And this was our introduction to how paperwork intensive and how important rules were in Japan. And those are some really, really big themes. So the one example I'll drop in from that, other than, oh, by the way, that's a 6-page arrival form. Thank goodness it at least is in English, right? But it's just the beginning step of others that you need to take, or get help from Kirk again with clearing in. But our cat, um, Japan's a rabies-free country. Of course, rabies-free countries, more concerned than most about how strictly they screen animals before coming in. Japan is definitely the strictest that we have come through, and that includes Hawaii and Guam, which are super strict. They wanted to have everything well in advance, and that was great, no problem. All of our paperwork is in order. In fact, we updated some vaccinations in Guam, easy peasy. No, not so much, because after filling out forms, which were not in English, which were entirely in Japanese, but like, Compire would give us like the English version of what it looked like so that we knew what to fill in where. Quarantine services in Japan kicked it back and said there's a typo. And there was. And it was a really obvious typo. But you know what? This is why you need to understand rules matter. We ended up delaying by almost a month in Guam while the titer lab for rabies back in Kansas reissued her paperwork. They would not accept it, even though it was obviously a typo that you could have just said, oh, well, we'll just let that go. They weren't going to let it go. Welcome to Japan, folks.
Yeah, I think
We'll
this.
talk about roots times.
Yeah, we'll talk about roots. It highlights the cultural gap between Japan and the people that come here, in a way. And Japan is friendly and nice and clean and safe and all these great attributes, but the way of life here is so different. And a big part of the understanding is in punctually punctuality expected.
Mhm.
And
Thank you for your
thank you for your
cooperation.
cooperation. And
Compliance is everything.
yeah, compliance is everything. So when we were 3 days from arriving in Japan, we were told that we needed to say what time our arrival time was
And we knew this was coming, but it's sort of hard
with
to actually process that.
within 15 minutes plus or minus, because
Plus,
these 17 people were going to be waiting, and if we were outside of 15 minutes, they were going to go on to their next job.
they've traveled for maybe a couple hours to be there. It's not unreasonable, really, when you think of it that way. We're just fitting into their world as opposed to them fitting into ours. We're just not used to that as cruisers, but that's how Japan is.
Yes.
Yeah. And then on the left, there's just sort of a list of the many things that are involved in it. We rarely hire agents, but it was really, really helpful for us to have Kirk behind us, to have Compire Yacht Services handle all of this. That's actually his rep in Japan, or in Okinawa, Akiko in the straw hat at the far right, who is waiting on the dock along with all of the officers to help with interpreting, help smooth any bumps, but really getting all of the paperwork done in advance. Um, Definitely trade-off of time for money, but it was a really worthwhile trade-off for us. Things you need to know, aside from the fact that you need multiple permits in order to move your boat around Japan easily, is the time frame you can be here, which will get us up to routes to take here. Visas are 90 days. That's actually not a lot of time for a very large country. It is just enough for the folks that are going to squeak through, come in from the south, zip up to the north, and head over to Alaska. We're on the extended plan. You can renew those 90-day visas, and I think enough people do. By flying out of the country, it's a pretty cheap flight to go to Korea or to go to Manila, Philippines. Come back in, get another 90 days, but you can only do that once a year. So there's 6 months, and you can have a plan for that, and that was our plan. Well, we got about 4.5, 5 months into that plan and realized that we just had so much more to see. We didn't want to leave to the south. And so, again, with help getting a lawyer involved and actually getting extended visas so that we can now stay for the next year. And there's Kirk and actually one of his staff from Fukuoka, the city up in Kyushu, who took us out for a phenomenal sushi dinner up there. Actually, like one of the epic dinners, I think. But that's what his website looks like. Highly recommend seeking it out when you get a chance for all of the ways that he basically greases the skids on making arrival go smoothly. But more importantly, and I hope we've impressed, on helping you manage the complexity of what it is to comport yourselves appropriately in Japan. Because I don't know how to overstate. This is really, really important. Everything's great here as long as you're following the rules. And hopefully we all want to do that anyway, but sometimes they're unspoken or sometimes they're just a little bit different. And I feel like it's so important to us to be good guests in a country, and I hope it's just as important to you. It is kind of our number one thing, I guess, when we're moving about, and I feel like we've been able to do that with the guardrails put up where we can see them, thanks to Kirk. This kanji is wa, and it means harmony, and it gets to the root of all of this. The number one social construct in this country, that's so, so important is a greater good, operating in harmony with that greater good. And this is what you need to know if you're coming to Japan. And the ways that cruisers most commonly fall out from that and risk the welcome for all of us here in Japan is by going against WA. And the ways they tend to do that are they show up in the marina without a reservation, or worse, they called for a reservation, they were told there's no room, and then they showed up anyway. Oh, please. um, Maybe they made a reservation and then they didn't show up. This happens too. Leaving anything unpaid, which is of course human. Something to know is that you cannot leave your boat unattended in these many fishing ports, and we've seen that get cruisers downstream then into trouble because someone has pulled their boat in and then they've left it to go do some inland traveling for maybe it's just a few days, maybe it's a couple of weeks, and they didn't tell anyone. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be there, on your boat only, unless you're actually in a more modern marina as opposed to the fishing ports we tend to go to. And the last big one we'll talk about later, garbage.
Yeah, I think the simple way to put it is there are really very important details um, for Japanese people that we think might not be a big deal.
And they're a really big deal.
In Mexico, when you go to a marina, you call and you call and you call and you call. Nobody ever answers.
So you
Nobody
show
phones
up.
it in. You show up, you get in front of them, and they're like, "Okay, great. Here's your slip."
Bonitos, and you go, it's okay. Welcome.
And it's the opposite in Japan. You
Mhm.
need the reservation. You need to show up when you said you were going to.
Mhm.
All these things matter.
Yep. So this gets to the question, your question, Thomas. Thoughts on routes. So the first thing I think we want to impress on that is it's so big. It's bigger than we realize, really. And so I found these on the interwebs, pictures of Japan overlaid on Europe and overlaid on the U.S. East Coast, and you can see it goes from Amsterdam in the north to actually well south of Casablanca. Japan goes all the way down to 24 degrees north, and we just cut the map off for space. In the US, Montreal to south of Miami, like you're on your way to Cuba. It's a really, really large country. And so you can see how 3 months, if you're going through in 3 months, you're kind of on the move. You're watching weather and you're going to move every time probably that you can. And if you're going 6 months, you're sort of doing that too, but you see a little more. And we're glad to have this longer stay visa so that we can actually enjoy and go maybe in a few places more slowly. Here are the major ways to arrive. It's pretty straightforward coming up from Southeast Asia or the Western Pacific by this route on the left, coming up from the Philippines. Um, and those cruisers departed back to the Philippines. They'd come across the Pacific and actually after hitting the Western Pacific, did that northern run. We thought about doing this actually ourselves when we thought we were going to leave after 6 months, that we'd like loop back in a few years.
Yeah, Taiwan is also an option to stop along the way
Mhm.
going north or south. Um,
Taiwan, not much of a cruising destination. We can't wait to go. I mean, I went to high school there, so we're going back. But for most people, less interesting.
yeah, and South Korea is can be a destination. They're just even less used to cruisers than Japan is, and it's doable, but
Yeah.
it takes a real effort to go to South Korea.
We have friends who were just in South Korea for some months, and it's significantly more complex. And they were doing effectively international clearance every time they moved their boat. It was a lot, and it got kind of costly too. So on the right-hand side is arriving more from the east, as we did. This is our route, and we came from Guam after going through Micronesia, and from Guam up to Okinawa, as opposed to the Philippines up to Okinawa. And there's our track from this past year up to Hokkaido on the Sea of Japan side, and then back south again to where we are today in Okinawa. And then where do you go when you depart? Well, obviously back to the south is one, and that will be our plan to Taiwan, or up from the north and head across the Aleutians to Alaska. And this all comes back to how are you playing it? Is it a 3 month visa? Is it a 6 month plan? Or are you going to go on a longer term plan with a little more exploration?
It's also important to note that, and we'll touch on this in a minute, but the season is kind of bookended by weather. If you're going up and over the top to Alaska by the Aleutians, it's really cold and big weather. So there's a relatively short period of time you can do that North Pacific easting. And going back to the south, cyclone season happens. And so making sure you're in the right season for that.
Yeah, no, it's true. And Jamie does weather routing, and he's helped a couple of boats across the North Pacific through the Aleutians in this last year. Is intimately familiar with the seasonality of it. If you're going to do that, and it is the most common path, I think, for cruises in Japan. Most of the cruising boats who are here are on that 3-month pass through, where you arrive in Okinawa in March sometime, and you depart from Hokkaido in June sometime. And if you get later, you're risking the back end of the season, or you're going nonstop, as one of the boats Jamie routed literally went from Hokkaido to San Francisco. So they skipped Alaska, and that's an option, but it looks wild and spectacular. By the way, last week, Annette and Anders did their OCC presentation on that crossing. Recommend. I don't want to get cold, but it sure made me want to go. So, in figuring out what your route should be in Japan, I actually ended up spending a lot of time in two places. One is looking at the routes of other boats in no foreign land. It's really handy that way. Those all of those last screenshots, right? I just went to boats we knew were in Japan and looked at the Find My Route, and you can see where they went. It's great. Um, but and that's part of the story. Kirk on the Compira Yacht Services website, Compira Consulting, uh, outlines a whole bunch of different options based on, do you have a 3-month visa, or are you staying a year and rather 6 months, or here's a 15-month plan, or you want to circumnavigate. Like, he's got a bunch of different ways to think about it that pulls in some of those considerations around weather and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah, I recommend checking that out. Oh yeah, there's the list.
it's sort of a if you're going up over the top, it's the west coast or the east coast, and if you're going back to
Mhm.
Southeast Asia, it might just be staying around the inland sea and around the bottom.
Yeah, and uh, West Coast, mellower for us in our timing, fewer typhoons. Also rural, very different experience. Up the East Coast is more urban, just in the very, very broad strokes. And you have, oh, hey, look at this current. This is a Copernicus current model in Windy, and that is a ripping current on the East Coast. For North Americans, it's kind of the Gulf Stream, really, right? It's that continental current.
Yeah, it's the western boundary current. There's also a lot of current on the west coast of Japan, and the nice element to the current is it's very warm water, and so it brings warmth later in the season,
Hmm.
and it makes it not too cold on the west coast,
Right?
further south. But
To be up in Hokkaido and have water temps actually in the 70s, that's incredible.
yeah,
I would have expected it to be significantly colder, like our home waters.
but it's also a feature to contend with if you're coming back to the south.
Yeah, yeah. Our trip south was had moments of not being fun. Let's just leave it at that. Other major consideration, typhoon season, and this takes you on a quick tour through the typhoons. Japan kind of starts to go off the chart at the top there. This is centered a little more for Micronesia, but you get the idea. There are some very, very big months for weather. And again, that's where if you really are thinking about the longer term stay, especially and beyond that June departure for Alaska, you're going to want to think about how you route and have access to safety based upon the very uh, numerous typhoons that can come through Japan in any
And
year.
this did weigh in on our choice to go up the west coast because there is less risk on the west coast of Japan. You can
Yeah.
see a lot um, more intense cyclones or typhoons get to the east
I
coast.
remember originally we were thinking, and if Kirk's watching, he'll maybe chuckle about this. We were like, oh, maybe we could circumnavigate Japan, like go up to Hokkaido on the east side and then come down on the west side. And um, yep, and then we got started. Although we also had some medical hiccups that slowed our pace this year. So another consideration then, we've touched on the weather. So we're up in Hokkaido and we're at the hardware store, which, by the way, check that out. There's like great hardware stores here. You feel like you're able to find a whole lot of things you might need. And they're having a preseason snowblower sale. This is your cue. This,
This
friends, is how you know it is really time to go.
Yeah. when you're sailing along the coast and you can see ski slopes,
Yes.
it's time to get going in the other direction.
Yeah, we like to be warm. Hats off to you, Simon, and the other high latitude sailors, but we are definitely warm weather sailors. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other routing questions? Feel free to drop them in the chat, but I think we'll move on to talk about some of the norms of cruising around in Japan and what that's been like. Uh, this is unusual, Totem in a marina. Most of the time here, we are not in marinas. There actually are not that many, considering the amount of coastline that exists. It's fairly long stretches between opportunities to tie up in a marina. And that means conveniences like a floating dock, which is nice because we've been in places with a 2 meter tidal swing and big tidal swings. I mean, plenty of parts of the world with more than that, but that's plenty when you don't have a floating dock, right? That complicates life significantly.
It does. And next slide. We're normally anchored
This is our norm
most of the time when we're
before
cruising.
Japan.
And if we're not anchored, yeah, we might be in a marina for a while so we could do some work or have easier shoreside access. Neither of these are common in Japan.
Yeah. It's really shifted our mode.
Yeah. The reality in Japan is,
Well, I do want to point out
oh,
this is actually Japan.
yeah,
It's just that we're almost never anchored. So it was like, wow, we're actually at anchor in Japan, get a picture. But this is the tropical south is really lovely.
we've anchored 3 times in Japan in 6 months, 7 months.
This is the norm. The norm is a fishing port with, wow, look at all that concrete, like an exceedingly well protected fishing port. This one in particular. This one's up in Hokkaido, not too far from the port town near Sapporo. But the norm are these fishing harbors where you'll overwhelmingly just have other commercial vessels, and then your lone cruising boat looking for the place to fit in.
As a nation of islands, there are very, very, very few natural ports or natural harbors in these islands. And so Japan has done an unimaginably amazing job at infrastructure and building man-made harbors. And if you need concrete construction, Japan is the place to do stuff because they're really, really good at it.
And it'll be shocking because for us to see that there'll be a tiny community, not very many people resident at all, and shrinking probably, and yet there will be this massive investment in infrastructure for the safety of the local fishing fleet. Instead of saying, well, maybe you guys should be relocating down the coast so that this makes more financial sense for the government.
Yeah, so rather than marinas, it's these concrete boxes, and they can be 2 or 3 miles apart, and some stretches a little bit, they could be 20 miles apart, but the entire length of Japan, both coasts.
And skip ahead to show what they look like from the sort of
yeah,
view.
and they're set up to provide protection. So there's a series of walls around it. They're very well engineered and thought out to go inside of. But they're not a marina. We're side tying to a wall, and there is a lot to decode in knowing where you can tie and how to tie and where you can't tie and permission behind it and expectation.
Yeah.
Now, most of these ports also, there's no cost. We've had one or two where
there's been a small fee, and it was literally a few dollars, or it was actually run as like a small marina, and it might have been $15 for the night.
But we're not always welcome. And some of these places, they really don't want foreign visitors there. In many places, we are welcome. And knowing how to decode that has been tricky, and that's helped with our agent in getting inside scoop on where's good and where's not good.
Yeah, that's been really, for me, one of the really priceless parts of working with Kirk is that he has contacts into ports, and he also just knows kind of what's going on. And so he could warn us not to go into a particular port that we later heard another cruising boat had gone into. And, people are running down the dock yelling at him and aggressively telling him he cannot be there. They do not want him. That it had suffered damage that, previously. But anyway, he's like, no, it's fine. I'm going to stay.
That'd be earthquake
Strike
damage.
one against the cruising community. Yeah, it had been severely damaged by an earthquake a year before. They hadn't really recovered. They needed the space that they had for their local boats. They didn't want him there. So we could skip that port. But he didn't know. And I think that is awkward for all of us because there is a problem in Japan right now with tourist fatigue, and it's mostly in the cities, and it is very real. And there are things that are happening because of that But that's going to affect us too as cruisers, and we always should be good guests. We always should leave a clean wake. And in Japan, it's sometimes harder to know what the right thing to do can be.
Yeah, so each time we're going to a new destination, there's quite a bit of research to figure out the next place and what is the port, what does the wall look like, the box? Where do we tie up in the box?
Yeah.
Where can we not tie up in the box? What is the protection from the coming conditions? Because there's a lot of big weather that gets to Japan.
And I'll show some examples of that, but this first is just a look at the equipment that we need in order to be safe. On the left, the fender board, we've got more than one of those. Some boats have up to three, depends on the size and the kind of the shape of the boat. And something we've never needed before, the really big A4, A5 size round fenders could not be here without those. And the fender boards, we're on our second round of fender boards now because conditions caused some to perhaps break up a little bit. There's very real conditions that we're dealing with. And then if you can see also on the shore side, there's no tidy cleats. No. Steel rings like the one at left or on the right, you can sort of see the edge of a sort of rusty bollard. We're tying up in very different ways and securing our boat in very different ways. And in the picture on the right, there was massive surge that would fling us back and forth along that seawall there. You can see the wall behind it has um, holes into it, and that's absorbing the force of the water moving through, but it's moving us back and forth along with it. Definitely making life interesting.
Yeah, concrete, it turns out, is not very flexible
Yeah.
or doesn't move with the boat like a floating dock does. And they're often just lots of barnacles
Wow.
and oysters on them. So it's a pretty tough, abrasive environment.
And we've got a picture of that
We
in just a little bit.
and when we were first getting ready to tie up to a wall, we're like, this is a different experience. We
Mhm.
actually quite grew to like
Like it a lot.
these ports
Yeah.
quite a lot.
Our cat
Um,
loves them.
yeah,
So
they're
many smelly net
they're often
behind.
quite large and easy to get in and maneuver around. It's not like getting into a marina with a tight fairway and a dogleg turn.
Mhm.
So there's a lot to like about these.
So here's a snapshot of No Foreign Land with the map filtered to show where cruisers have now peppered it over, and it's really expanded, even just in the last year while we've been here, as we see other boats dropping in part notes on ports. But and I picked this one in particular on the left, Tomy Port. I don't know where that is, but it's great that there's a little bit of information about maybe where you are and aren't wanted inside this port. You're not always going to find that. And you might want to then on arrival seek out they're easy to find the local fishing co-op location. It'll be a big open area where fishing boats unload their catch. And if you don't have it prepared in Japanese, have your phone with you for some ready translation to be able to make sure you're in a place that's okay for them. And it's always been okay so far for us, but boy, it would be great if it wasn't and they could tell us, no, we'd like you to be over here instead. We did in one fishing port have them come over to us afterwards and say, there's a better place for you based on the weather that's coming. And we moved.
And one port they did ask us to leave.
Which one?
The one up by Hokkaido, in
Oh,
Hokkaido.
right. Okay. So, other thing to know, officially, when you come in, you get 24 hours. You get 1 day to stay. If there are conditions, there are conditions. But we didn't realize that because we'd stayed mostly, a couple of nights at these, and it's not a big deal most of the time. Well, this one was near some military installation, perhaps,
Yeah.
and whatever the reasons were, city officials came by on day two and were like, "We're going to need you to move on," and they
But
were fine with us going the next day.
and one thing about the information that's in No Foreign Land, a
Mhm.
lot of it is just put in by other cruisers, and it is not always correct. And so there'll be information about a fishing port, and you might think that it's easy to just go and follow the guidance, and it may be a place that they don't want you.
Yeah.
And so really it's not the only source to know where fishing ports are.
And
Um,
we'll show you that in a second.
yeah, there's
So,
more research.
question here, Alexander, does a 54 footer fit into most fishing ports, or is that a potential problem? That does not fit into most fishing ports, and you would need to do more careful planning. There's absolutely no problem with coming, but you're big. Well, I think I'm mentally, I would say about 50 feet is
Mm,
where it starts to get a little more
no,
complicated.
I think 50 feet would still be fine in the majority of fishing ports. But it just is a nuance that you'd have to
If
do
you
one more layer of research.
For 54, I know because we know of a couple of other 54 footers. One of them's right next to us that have come cruising in Japan who have talked about it being harder to find the places that they fit.
Yeah.
And so that's fine. You'll come. I hope. It's awesome. But you may want to do a little bit more planning. The fishing ports, and it's not like slip length. It's more like fuzzy math, right? But two names to look for in no foreign land are Gurulfo. They're both ML 54s, Gurulfo and Tenga. And both of them are 54 footers that have done a bunch of cruising in Japan. So you can kind of see where they went. But how do we know? This is another way we know. Another Japanese language only site. This is put together by Japanese sailors, and it is incredibly thorough. But they have very different sized boats. They're like 30 something footers. And so where they go is not necessarily where we can go. It's just one indicator. And it is all in Japanese, and I can't get my browser to translate this. So I'm holding my phone up to the screen at times. But when you zoom in on a place that you're headed to, like if we know this is our next stop, I'll go, all right, right, I'll go in. This is the same one we were showing earlier. They're very helpful. They always tell you where the hot springs are, the round or the yellow circle on the right. Where is the onsen closest to the harbor? Where is the pub? Is there fuel? And then the pins for where they put their boats. And that is actually what's most useful because then I go in and I will first check the charts and look at kind of sizes and spaces, but then go in and look at Google Street View and say, do I see these yellow and black bars, these beams over the edge? Because that tells me that is the location for transient boats. That is your visual cue that says this is where visiting boats get to go. Now, in this case, in this port, the bars are there, but you can't actually go there. It's not visible, but these fishing boats, it's effectively a barricade over the whole inner harbor. Oops. um, but it was a good visual on that. And then of course you get there and you get what you get. Like this is one port we arrived in, Nomo, and we were aware of a particular place where we thought we could go, based on kind of that research. And then we got there and we couldn't. There was a fishing boat that was tied too close. There was weather coming. It probably wouldn't have been safe. We would have been hitting each other. And so we couldn't go there. We had to keep looking and find something else. We ended up here. And it was maybe not the best couple of days at the dock in that blow. Yeah. Another thing you may encounter then here on the top of a seawall, the bollards being spaced really far apart. And so securing your boat to them becomes another extra hurdle to make sure that you've got lines where you want them and feel comfortable in the space.
They're relatively consistent with having ways to tie up boats and these big vertical bumpers for large boats and the features of them. But the subtle variation means each time you get to a new place, there's a little bit of discovery on how do we tie up safely.
Every single time, it's all going to be different. But you know what? Like Jamie said, we really like these seawalls, and our cat loves them. And the ease of getting on and off is kind of nice. This is actually right near where we are now in Okinawa. But just to illustrate another feature that you encounter in these walls, I mentioned the cutouts into the wall in that other place and how that affected the current on our boat in there and the surge on our boat in there. And it's pretty significant. Now you picture getting your fenders to the right height. Yeah, we have friends who literally would set an alarm, or a boat that we're familiar with, to make sure they were on the boat at high tide and at low tide so that the tide would not, at the high end, wouldn't pop their fenders over the top of the wall, and at the low end, wouldn't stick their fenders into a hole and then put the hull of the boat against, oh, look at all those oysters. Yeah, that wouldn't be nice on the hull, would it?
Yeah, we've never spent so much time trying to figure out how
Yeah.
to tie up as in Japan.
This shows you an earthquake damaged port that we went into where all of that concrete on the left has been heaved up.
Yeah, and they're working on rebuilding it. That's what the barge and cranes are, but it made it more challenging to even be there.
It did. And related to that, to quakes and tsunamis, two things that we often are not thinking a lot about. Japan has earthquakes all the time, and tsunamis happen. And we have, over 18 years, been in 3 tsunami warning areas, and we were in one here last year. And in the aftermath of that, we actually did a little webinar. You can find it on Sailing Totem, tsunamis, or just hit me up. But it turns out actually this is probably one of our not defining features, but something that is a really important part of decoding, I think, cruising in Japan is to have a sense of what you would do, how you pay attention to it. now that we've had several potential events occurring here, now that we've seen the aftermath of tsunamis here, we're very hyper aware of the fact that it's in the realm of possibility to be in a tsunami in this country.
Yeah.
You got to watch out for that aquaculture. This picture shows you just a handful of floats. It's hard to see, but there's actually a whole sea of nets underwater that you can't that aren't visible in this picture.
And lines connecting them. They're always when we're cruising, somebody's standing watch and paying attention and looking out. But in Japan, it is so important, more than other places, because of unfortunately, there's a lot of plastic garbage in the water. China is very close by, Russia's close by, and so we've seen a 50-gallon drum. We've seen
A big freezer box.
a freezer box, coils of line floating on the
Mhm.
surface, and it's something you have to pay attention to. Also, the seaweed here in what, spring
I guess it's in the spring.
can
We
be
haven't had a lot yet. We arrived in June, and it's just January, of course, now.
can be so thick
Yeah.
that people that we knew that here just before us, they would have their propeller bound up
Yeah,
by it.
effectively disabling the boats. That's kind of scary because you need that. You need to be able to power in and out of harbors.
Yeah, and then lots and lots of fishing boats.
Yeah, so many fishing boats. By the way, no fishing for foreign vessels in Japan. We're not fishing at all. It's simply not legal. Don't do it. Too bad, huh? But you know what? No problem because there's so much spectacular fish to buy, and Japanese diet is so seafood oriented that you will never have a problem finding gorgeous, gorgeous fresh fish. I think we've never eaten better seafood. Here's a pretty typical scene coming in and out of a port where we have two tablets up, and one is running Navionics and one is running New PEC And we do not have a chart plotter in the cockpit. Actually, we don't even have a chart plotter. We use OpenCPN charting software. It's on a laptop below deck. That's worked fine for us. We've never had a cockpit chart plotter, so we're maybe a little different. But being able to see both of those for us has been the dual reference occasionally going into harbors has been important.
Yeah.
Thank you for your cooperation. We've had many, many visits from the Japan Coast Guard, and it is sometimes frustrating because really you're going to ask us the same questions again, and you guys don't share information, but really they are. And you know what? That's okay. I go back to being guests in this country. We're not that fussed by it, but it is a feature, and it is not always nice. It is usually nice. We found a way to turn that around. At the far right, you can see we're sitting in the cockpit. He's showing me a phone. We asked them for their favorite local pub. Wow, what a great way to get good information. The other thing to ask them is if they'll take your garbage. We'll get to garbage more, but again, I've mentioned garbage is a real hassle to deal with in Japan, and it's great if they can take a bag of garbage for you.
Yeah, and just to be clear, they're always very courteous, very respectful, and nice when we've been checked, and they always are just checking our ship's papers and to make sure we have proper paperwork to be in Japan and checking passports and
Only
things.
one experience out of 15 did we have a Coast Guard officer who was not respectful, and he thought he was teaching us a lesson about something he wished we'd done. And anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. So, a couple of really large commercial vessels here. What do they have in common besides that? No AIS. Okay, there's no AIS on many boats, most fishing boats, a lot of big commercial boats.
Most commercial boats have AIS, but we
But you
did,
could have a big tug and tow with nothing.
yeah, with nothing. So
You have
again,
to be ready for that.
that eyes out, paying attention is super important.
Yeah, eyes out. Um, Services. Let's talk about getting around a little bit. Some of the normal everyday stuff. Getting diesel. I know Annette and Anders talked about this too, but I love this. Okay, you know the like cute Japanese trucks, the like kind of bite-sized trucks? They're perfect. If we ever live on land again, I think I want a Japanese truck. They're so utilitarian. Here one is with a big tank full of diesel, topping us up right at the dock. Handy.
Again, we've only been to three marinas with floating docks in Japan, mostly these seawalls, and there's no fuel dock in these, so they bring the fuel dock to you.
They do.
Not every port we found has easy access where there's a truck that will come,
Mhm.
but basically, when there is a gas station near you, you go and ask if they'll deliver fuel.
Yeah.
And
Or you ask the fishing co-op, and you know they may have a delivery that they call up to have someone come down for you.
And it's awfully nice when they do because there's no maneuvering the boat to a fuel dock again with skinny fairways and dog legs and
That's
windy
right.
and conditions.
Yeah. Sometimes it's been cash only, hasn't it? Or has it been usually,
No,
we've usually been able to use a card for that.
no, always the
Yeah.
card.
The other kind of fuel, propane, worth mentioning too, foreign tanks, foreign propane tanks are illegal to fill in Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah, let that sink in, right? So if you're here long enough to need to refill a tank, basically have to buy a Japanese tank, because and then you're not supposed to. It is illegal to decant that tank into your own. So you're not getting a swap and go kind of thing and returning it. So we fit a 10 kilo Japanese propane tank into our locker now. Again, that was something that was complicated for us and was really helpful to be able to ask Kirk if he and folks working with him could source and deliver filled for us because you also cannot take your existing tank, even when you have a Japanese one, to a fill and hand it over and say, "Hey, I'd like this filled up with propane," because you're not from here. You're supposed to be local and provide an address in order to get that filled. And so it means make a friend, pass your Japanese tank off to your Japanese friend who will use their address to go and get that filled for you and bring it back. So it gets more complicated. This is a countryside community garbage facility. You can see the sign on the front. There are like one, two, three, four, five, six, 7 different ways that your garbage should be correctly separated and on a particular day of the month or week disposed of. So that's complicated. Now look at these bags on the right. This is a picture from a hardware store. Garbage is separated into multiple categories, and prepared in specific ways, and then separated in color-coded bags, and then only disposed of on the right days, and. Basically, it gets complicated to throw your garbage away, and you need to plan to have your garbage on your boat as if you were going on a multi-week passage with no opportunity to throw your garbage away on the other side of it, even though you're in a country that has people everywhere.
Mostly it breaks down into 3 categories. Every town or region has differences into how many categories, but largely it's burnable, non-burnable, and then glass or cans recycling. And again, it can be up to 7 categories. And the level that people expect the garbage to be sorted this way is that it's not just, oh, here's my glass bottle, I just put it in the glass bin. If it's got a plastic cap on it, that should come off because plastic is not glass. So it clearly goes that the
It goes
plastic
back
is
in
the
it
burn.
goes in the burnable. And
And
it's weird to think of plastic as burnable, but remember, high heat incinerator.
And if you have that can with a paper label on it, the paper label comes off before you put the can in the can bin.
Mhm.
We heard about this before we got to Japan. We didn't fully appreciate the level that it's expectation of how the garbage is managed, but it is important to do it well. Don't mess things up. Don't put the wrong things because that's what makes the people in Japan not so happy with cruisers,
Mhm.
and we want to be the good cruisers.
Clean wake. Let's yeah, make
It's
make it easy for everyone coming behind you.
it's really not a big deal, and it has meant that we've kept things like glass bottles or cans longer on the boat,
And then
and
we finally have an opportunity to dispose of them, and they're like, "Wow, that's a lot of liquor bottles." That's what the guys were saying to us here in Okinawa. They're like, "Oh,"
yeah,
and then we
but it's
ordered a
been two.
case of tonic. Yeah. Uh, something else to anticipate is getting parts. Some things may be really easy to get. Our unfortunately autopilot course computer patient did not recover here, and we ended up needing a new one. In that at that particular part, we had a friend coming in from the U.S., which was great because um, the markup on buying that part in Japan would have made it cost about twice as much as we could get it for off the shelf in the U.S. Like a couple $1,000s more. Significant. We do not get a yacht in transit benefit here. But you can also find things off the shelf, and when we have, we've had trouble navigating. It's been a little harder navigating the websites for chandleries in Japanese as well. Anticipate that the cost of spares is just going to be a bit higher. That there are facilities and services here and manufacturers here that mean you can get them, though, which for the last years in Micronesia we did not necessarily have.
Yeah, and one note on the propane based on the chat is yes, the Japanese tanks fittings are the same as US style, so that part is easy. But if you have to buy a Japanese tank, it is steel, painted steel, not aluminum or fiberglass.
Yeah, so
And
we're looking
so,
forward to that rust bucket
yeah,
on the
it's
list to get.
fine. It's fine. We also related in getting gasoline for the outboard at one point in the generator. They would not fill our plastic jerry cans,
That's right.
and we had to
We had to
buy
buy.
a local steel gas tank to get fill on that. So a little bit of quirky things, but it's easy enough to deal with.
Yeah, yeah. It was frustrating. Of course, it was right before we were leaving and it was short notice and Jamie and I effectively work near about full time in our coaching business, and it was really helpful for us to be able to say, hey, Kirk, we need some help, and have a new tank, a Japanese tank filled with fuel waiting for us. So I want to run through a couple prices on things to provide relativity to the statement that Japan is actually a pretty cheap place to cruise. Overwhelmingly, it's exceptionally affordable. Part of that is that we're not paying for moorage in these fishing ports most of the time. And part of that is our major variable expense in life is food. And we eat really well for really little. And I maybe should be embarrassed, but I'm not. Yes, we were buying food. This was a quick lunch at the grocery store. Grocery store sushi. You're cringing, but it's amazing. And this dinner or this lunch, this was enough for both Jamie and I. It's about $5 US, and it was fantastic. Like a soy chicken,
It's
sesame chicken, and 8 pieces of sushi.
it's roughly 150 yen to a US dollar.
Yeah,
So the one on the left is like a dollar 70,
yeah,
dollar 50.
yeah. And
Yeah,
it's less than $5 for 8 pieces of that sushi.
yeah.
Yeah. Amazing, right? You can also have spectacular food, like high-end food. I've heard about is there a phrase like when something's been Japanned? Because if a particular type of food, like maybe it's a kind of cheese, maybe it's a preparation for beef, that's done really well in some locale in the world and they're famous for it, there will be a Japanese chef who will study it, learn it, and do it better. Huh. And we've had some really, really spectacular meals. Yes, this was more than $5, but this was like I think it was like a, I don't know, 8 course tasting menu where everything was hyper local to this little island that we were on off of the coast. And it was spectacular. And it was probably a quarter of what I would have expected to pay for that in the US. And then here is a typical set lunch in a little restaurant, the set meal, where you've got rice, fish, and a bunch of sides and some soup. That plate of sashimi and the rice alone would have been plenty for me, but this whole tray was about $10. Yeah, that I would say would be like, that's like average. All right. And then provisioning, if you're going to the grocery store, this is the supermarket that is closest to us. There's Jamie on the far right, and it is, I would
Vib
say,
it is vibrant.
vibrant. But this is kind of typical, and in a town that has a decent population. However, most of the rural parts of the country that we were in didn't necessarily have this. There's been a lot of depopulation. It's an aging population. Youth want to be in the cities. They're overwhelmingly on the East Coast, and there might not even be a convenience store in some of those smaller towns. So we were doing a little more stocking up when we were spending more time in smaller towns. But the selection is fantastic. It is just everything is wrapped in plastic. Everything.
That is the downside, but the quality of food and produce is exceptional.
Fantastic. It is really, really good. This is the farmer's market where, again, everything is wrapped in plastic, even though it is local produce in Okinawa. This is from June. And the incredible tasty variety, what you can't see is the flavor. And we all know how you can buy strawberries. Here's some strawberries that don't even taste like strawberries. They're just kind of red shaped lumps. They'll taste like strawberries in Japan. They'll be beautiful as well. However, this on the shelf a couple days ago in the market here, it was like $10 for 6 or 7 maybe strawberries. And yeah, you can find a friend of mine asked me the other day. She's like, "But I can't. Can I find Coca-Cola?" Yeah, you can find all of your vice drinks that way here too, as well as alcohol's very reasonably priced. But the thing that you'll find everywhere, moving to the right there, are vending machines. There is always a vending machine that will color code whether drinks are hot or cold, and yes, the same vending machine will have both for you. And then on the right, just again thinking provisioning and what's accessible and easy to get here. Check out that hardware store. I uh, I really should make a series of pictures I have of me following Jamie around hardware stores of the world. But in this case, we're picking up like some coolant and some double-sided tape and some brake cleaner and yeah, checking out more wood for the fender boards.
Yeah.
So what's next? Well, we thought we were going to be in Taiwan right now, and this, back in October, decided that actually we wanted to stay longer in Japan, and so we don't know, but there are so many areas we want to linger in and explore more and learn about more, and that's really only just a handful of them. We cannot wait to spend more time in this interesting, friendly, beautiful country with such amazing food and such affordable prices. And have I missed one of the favorites about here? It's the people again, really wonderful human beings that we have met along the way here. This was last week's OCC talk. Don't miss it because if you're thinking about coming to Japan, that is your exit strategy. We met Annette and Anders actually back in Micronesia, and he is the nerd and she is the Energizer Bunny, as they self-describe perfectly. And thank you. Yes, I will stop the share.
Hey, thank you very much, both. That was a real tour de force of Japan. You answered quite a few of the questions as we were going along. I've got a couple, if that's all right. And I'll just ask
Yeah,
people
yeah.
to either put up their electronic hand or put a question in the Q&A, and then I'll invite them to open their microphone if they're still with us. So, yeah, if you were doing it over a couple of seasons, obviously you've got the visa issues for the person, but how long can the boat stay? And is the facility to actually keep the boat safely ashore or safely in the water if you go
Mm.
away for 6 months? How does that work?
Yeah. The boat can stay forever. I
Oh,
mean, there's
no
literally
tax, no
nothing
tax.
limiting the time for the boat. It's just the people. We met Dutch cruisers in Fukuoka. They've had their boat here for like 30 years. They built it.
Okay.
They had one boat here, and then they went to Taiwan and built another one and brought it back. They've never imported it. It's still a foreign boat.
Yeah. The space for the boat is a little bit trickier
Hmm.
because there aren't many marinas, as we talked about, in Japan. And it is possible, though, to be able to get your boat into a marina for a long stay period of time. It just takes organizing with the reservation and coordinating with the marina to be
Hmm.
able to do that. And there are
Right.
also haul out facilities as well.
Yeah.
They are limited though. Um, for example, we were up in Hokkaido, and the way that many bottoms get cleaned here is by hauling out, pressure washing, and putting back in. Hauling out's pretty affordable. And we saw that lift there, and we thought we got 1,500 miles of southing to do coming up soon. Let's get the bottom clean. We were too big. We were like a hair too big. And I don't think of us as a big boat by 2020's cruising standards. We're
Big in terms
47
of
foot.
draft or beam or what was
It was probably weight.
It was weight on that particular lift. The
Mhm.
marina where we are at now, the lift is right next to us, and that can take
It's
boats far,
substantial.
far larger than us. So there are facilities capable of lifting big boats.
But there's like
But
one other one up the west coast after this.
yeah,
There's probably some on the east side where the cities are, but like literally there's one other, and I'm not even sure. That would be the other one in
so
Fukuoka.
just like all the other things in Japan, it does take a little extra work to research and understand,
Hmm.
and then organize with people and make reservations.
Hmm.
so the boat can stay forever. People get 90 days to start with, but you can renew that for 180 as
You
long
can
as
renew it once,
yeah, in the year.
once.
In the
Yeah.
year. But then you've gone for an extra visa to stay for a total of a year or
So the one that we've got is actually technically it's a residency card. We've got like I can't believe we've got residency cards. They look like driver's licenses. And it's technically for 6 months, but it's a rubber stamp renewal.
yeah,
And so that gives us a lot of flexibility. We do expect to renew it, but then we expect also to head south late next year, kind
Next
of
year.
between, or I'm sorry, late this year. It's 26.
And getting this had another set of hoops to jump through and some
Mhm.
requirements, health insurance
Yeah.
and a pile of money in a bank somewhere to show that we were solvent.
It was not an insignificant effort. We could not have navigated it without professional help. And in our case, I mean, I know there are services that do this. We just, Kirk knows how to do this, and so he got it all we had an interview with an immigration lawyer, and within a matter of weeks, it was done. It was a little stressful waiting because we really waited until the last minute to do this. And if it was not issued in time, we would need to fly back to our home country to have it issued by the Japanese consulate nearest our home address, which, surprise, kids, we'll be home for Christmas. We're glad we didn't have to do that. We'd rather pick our time, but it's not insignificant for people who think they want to do it. It's good to plan ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
I should mention one other strategy other cruisers have used. I'm kind of I'm not a fan of trying to sneak by a country's laws, but we're also not perfect
Mhm.
uh, on immigration. And what folks have done is fly out more than once and not been caught, and so it's worked out. It's a risk. It
Yeah.
maybe is a calculated risk, but we know boats that have stayed here longer using that method. They typically, though, and I don't know where the duration is, but I'm guessing it's two 90-day visas in a rolling annual period. They're usually out for a few months, and then coming back again.
Yeah, and the risk, of course, is that if you get blocked from coming back in and your
And
boat
your boat's
is
here.
there, then
You're
you're
really
stuck
stuck.
Yeah,
until you can get back.
yeah.
You're really stuck. Yeah, for sure. And the difficulty, it's unfair to ask you, but the obstacle to going to Korea is all bureaucratic. Is that right? So, because I gather it's a great cruising destination. We've spent some time in the last year or two sailing with a guy who's spent a lot of time in Korea. He says it's a great place to sail, but the bureaucracy.
Yeah, the bureaucracy is real. And we were hanging out with a boat here very recently that spent time there, and they found it pretty frustrating. You kind of uh, where in Japan, it helps a lot to have an agent, but you don't have to have an agent. Uh, they're not sure how you could do cruising in Korea without having a Korean friend or agent doing things on your behalf. We did also meet a really awesome Korean family cruising in Guam. They bought a boat in the Med, and they've gone east, and they're actually still in Saipan, the travel and they were talking about how they are hoping to maybe help make it easier to cruise in Korea. There's actually a Cruising in Korea WhatsApp group with some Koreans that are also trying to do that. But right now, I think everyone acknowledges that although it is possible, you have to really want it because it's complicated. We contemplated it briefly, but the level of complexity for us, because we also have a cat, we're just like, no, because
Uh,
it's not rabies free. And then to come back into Japan and have to go through all the hoops with her again, we don't want her in quarantine. We don't want her, in a cage. So yeah, it was off the menu for us.
I invited Alexander to come in as a to ask the question, but I think they
Oh
did
yeah.
that. So
If,
maybe if you just go straight to that. Um,
sure thing. Yeah, for stay in winter, where do we want to go? And Alex, please feel free to pop up and we can chat about it. But for staying in winter, since we're midwinter right now, we're down south, and we, as you can see, are not. It's not shirt sleeves weather exactly. We have a heater on as well. Here in Okinawa, the southernmost prefecture in Japan, it is still pretty chilly. We're at about 26 degrees north, but we've got, we're waking up in the morning to like 13, 14, 15 degrees lately, right? So upper 50s, and sometimes the days creep in over 70 degrees, like, 21 Celsius. Not necessarily. And
It's also blustery
mhm,
wintertime weather. We have a lot of low pressure systems that roll by from west to east over middle and northern Japan, and we feel that a lot. So it's blowing 30 knots here.
that's right.
So it's a time to be in the southernmost part of Japan,
Hmm.
and ideally in a good well protected place.
Hmm.
And then come probably another month or so, we're going to start tiptoeing to the north up the island chain and up to
That's right.
the Seto Sea.
Yeah, we think, mid-February looks like better timing in terms of it'll be warmer and easier to do these after coming down the West Coast in the fall and being cold. And we don't like being cold.
Yeah.
We're maybe a little bit gun
So
shy on
and
that.
then we'll follow the cherry blossoms north.
That is the ideal. How amazing to experience that literal sakura cherry blossom
and you
season.
skiers, because the skiing in Japan is supposed to be phenomenal, isn't it?
It is. And, although we ski, it's been 30 years, so we're not
It's
skiers at the same time, and we wouldn't have any of the kit. So,
but
yeah.
But yes, northern Japan is awesome skiing opportunities for people that
Yep.
are interested.
In fact, we've got cruising friends that are headed to, I think they call it Snokaido right now.
Yeah,
And, or maybe they're going to be up in like northern Honshu and do some skiing and then come and visit and we'll see them down here in Okinawa.
great, fantastic. Well, Fender, you've been talking a lot this evening, but thank you very much indeed. It's fascinating, and I've got some other questions I wanted to put to you actually. The cost sounds incredibly cheap. You said $15 for marina, is that right? Did I hear that right?
Yeah, they're really inexpensive. I think the range we've paid is 15 to 30 a night, roughly. Very, very reasonable.
And
The trick is the
Your Japanese,
reservation.
your Japanese chart app is that expensive or it was the New Peck
New
Smart?
PetSmart.
Yeah, was that
Yeah,
expensive?
I think of it as a cost of entry. I actually don't remember the cost offhand. There's a monthly subscription fee, and I know one of the challenges as if you're getting it independently, and changing your device to the Japanese store for a year in order to be able to do that.
Almost
Um,
like you need a Japanese smartphone, doesn't it?
yes. Yeah. So we had an older iPad, fortunately not too old. But
Yeah,
the operating system was just enough. And so that is our dedicated new Peck Smart device, because then we don't use it for anything else. I don't care if
yeah.
it's on the Japan store. But then you have to be able to pay for it, and you can't use a US credit card. So people have gone through the hoops of like, buying gift cards on Amazon Japan and using that to pay for it. Like essentially it starts getting complicated fast and it's not a guaranteed renewal. So we just got it through Kirk and he's got a corporate account and we pay him the monthly service fee to him instead. Much easier.
Got you. And how is your Japanese coming on? Are you quite fluent now?
Oh, Choto. I really enjoy taking Japanese lessons. I am finally able to speak actual sentences to people and be understood, which is huge. And then I don't always understand what's being said back, but I really enjoy language study. I speak a few, and I'm struggling with Japanese. Oh, and one of the languages I used to be fluent in Chinese, Mandarin. So like kanji, theoretically, no problem, right? Well, it has been some decades. It helps. I can read some of the kanji, but the fact that there are literally 92 letters to the alphabet,
Okay.
plus a couple thousand characters for Japanese.
Wow. So were you brought up in Taiwan, did you say? Or
I finished high school in Taiwan. I spent a college semester there, and I still speak better Chinese than I speak Japanese,
are
but
you
I'm working on it.
the cruising in Taiwan you don't rate so highly or
So we haven't been there yet, and so I'm going on hearsay from our planning. But it is challenging from the outside making plans to go in. We would love to bounce down the coast, for example, but it looks like if we arrive in the north, we'd have to get, or we couldn't get a permit. We'd be allowed there for like a week. That's no good. We want to stay for 3 months, you know. Totem was built in Taiwan. We'd like to really
yeah.
hang out for a little while at the old yard where she was
Totem's a
built.
Stevens 47, and
Mhm.
Stevens has become Hilus and still building boats there. And they were telling us that they've never had a Stevens 47 come back to
We're in
the
touch with the family that owns the yard.
yeah, and
Fantastic.
so we're looking forward to seeing them
Yeah,
next year
yeah,
or
yeah.
later this year.
Later this year, hopefully.
And where are you heading after Taiwan? Or have you got a plan for that? Or
Uh,
Philippines,
Philippines for a while would be nice. We'd like to warm up in some pretty water. And then Southeast Asia
back to
again.
Southeast Asia.
And then we'll see, but presumably Indian Ocean at some point after that.
yeah, great.
But we do expect probably at least a few more years in Asia.
Yeah, we just love it here. Plus, it's a decent time zone for the work that we do as coaches and mentors that a lot of the people we work with are in North America, in the Caribbean, and Mexico.
And South
And
Pacific.
and in the South Pacific. And this is a really good place to be able to. I mean, we start our calls usually about 6 o'clock in the morning, but we're done by about noon. And it helps us have a bit of a balance. We have a couple of Mediterranean clients. They're a little trickier. It's usually like in the evening for us and in the morning for them. It works
Those
out, but it's
testing
trickier.
OCC webinars at 5 o'clock in the morning, get down the ocean.
Exactly, right? But as soon as we start getting west from Southeast Asia, it will get substantially more complicated in terms of hours. And I don't know, we really love what we do. We don't want to stop doing it. So
And there's no problem working in Japan. There's no issue. Is there like a digital nomad type permit or work permit, or do you not need that? Or
So yeah, this will be one of those like we really try to be rules followers, but
Just like to ask.
there's a lot of gray area in being a digital nomad, right? And there's not we're just here on a residency visa, which actually is not working in Japan, but we're not working we're not
locally.
yeah we're not working locally.
Yeah.
So interpret as you will. We're choosing the one that we like.
I think everybody's feeling their way with that at the moment, aren't they? Apart from the few countries
Mm,
that have actually introduced a
yes.
digital nomad type permit. Wonderful. Thank you very much, both. Really great. And I hope you have a lovely rest of winter. It looks a fascinating place to be. It sounds
Well, it's
like
a really great
that's
reason to
that's
look for
quite
a ramen
close in the
shop.
next year or two somewhere. You never know. That would be great.
We could. Maybe you'll be headed up this way. Maybe
Yeah,
we'll intersect
we're
along the way.
undecided. We're undecided. I mean, we've always wanted to end up in Alaska, so that would be the natural route. But we've kind of gone
Mhm.
off the States for a little while, so we're just taking stock at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have
So
we.
funny.
Jeez. I
Figuring
mean,
out the best place
even
to go.
no, and even before it turned into a dumpster fire, frankly, we just didn't want to be cold. And so we weren't going back that way anyway. But now it's like, wow, no, no. And the kids are really happy to come and visit us. And yeah.
And the Philippines are
So
relatively safe cruising, or I mean, you hear horror stories about piracy and stuff down there. Is that?
It definitely has had its periods of piracy in regions within the Philippines. When we were in Southeast Asia, the last time we were in Singapore, ready to go up to the Philippines, and the Abu Sayyaf started taking people in Palawan and the area north of Borneo, and we decided that it was a no-go for us because we had to cross the region, and that's not been as active in the last bunch of years, fortunately, happily, and
mhm.
so it does seem like a generally safe and active cruising region now.
Yeah.
As it seems, the Red Sea is becoming more tenable as well, which is it's been a no go area for a long time. So
It
yeah,
has, I know, really,
just
hopefully,
explores
hopefully
other
that
options
continues.
start to open up again, maybe.
Yeah. So there's a question in the chat about having a cat on board, and Trond is saying they live and cruise in Norway with their ship's cat. She can go wherever she wants on land, except cities. She does always find her way back to the boat. What about ours? Yes. So ours was a Mexican street cat that became our ship's cat, and she likes to be on shore and wander. Unfortunately, we got her not as a kitten, and changing that to be an indoor cat, boat only cat, is just not her jam. So one of the things that we do is, well, right now we've actually barricaded the companionway because there is a busy street near here, and it is the time of day with a lot of vehicles, and we just don't want her to be out. And she's not entirely pleased about that, but that's too bad.
But
However,
she does roam at night when there's no traffic to speak of, and she's got a GPS collar.
That's
And
very
so
good.
we know where she is. There's no issue with her coming back to the boat. She always comes back.
that's what she did in the last 24 hours. Basically, overnight was running around a field close to the marina here, and at least we know she's crossing that road. She's pretty savvy. We did get her a collar with her name in katakana embroidered on it in Japanese and our Japanese phone number.
Yeah. She's a very happy cat in Japan.
So happy.
Where in lots of the North Pacific Islands, we didn't bring her ashore because
She couldn't.
lots of
What's
stray
safe?
dogs and it
Yeah.
wasn't safe. And we also wanted to keep her in this certified rabies free on the
Mhm.
boat between Hawaii and then Guam and then
Her
Japan.
mom allowed her to arrive as if she was from Hawaii because she had not gone on shore in
And
15 years.
she spent 9 months on the boat, not getting off once, and she
Crazy,
was a
right?
trooper for that.
She was.
But she sure enjoyed
So
her
happy to go on
off the
shore.
boat time now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we have
Sushi does help. Yes. She likes shrimp, by the way.
yeah, but we do have
Don't we
to
all?
manage it because that street traffic picks up, and we don't want her going across. So we've got her locked in right now.
Yep.
Both. Thank you very, very much indeed. Lovely chat, and enjoy the rest of your time in Japan. And let's hope our paths cross somewhere in the next year or two. That would be wonderful.
I hope so. I hope so. Have a good evening. Thank you so much, Simon. Always a pleasure. We sure appreciate the OCC.
Great. Bye, bye both. Excellent.
Thank
Bye
you.
now.
And good night, everybody else. Cheers.